Because Mr. Oogie Boogie is the meanest guy around. If I was honest, Boogie List, I'd get out of town. Na. Hello everyone, it's CM Kozeman, back after a somewhat long hiatus. I had a hard time, ladies and gents. I had some sort of weird sickness. I don't know if it was COVID, but I had some sort of weird sickness. The doctors say it was something to do with the shingles virus coming back to life. And long story short, I had a weird range of symptoms. I had nausea, body aches, I vomited, fever. Then one of my ears got covered with pustules. Very strange. And then half of my face had paralysis, but thankfully it didn't last long. I went to the hospital 4 times. I took cortisons. I took 2 corona tests. Both of them came negative. Long story short, I'm much better now. I still feel dizzy sometimes, and I have a persistent ringing in my right ear. But I'm okay. I mean, life goes on. I still work. I'm happy. I'm healthy. I eat well. I'm as happy as anyone in a developed middle-class society in these days and ages, trapped in home due to COVID lockdowns. But knock on wood, could have been worse. But today we are not going to talk about any of these things. Today we are going to be talking about the species responsible for the greatest extinction on Earth, and perhaps an intelligent species that just quietly slipped under our radar. Of course, it all depends on our definition of intelligence, but here we go. But before we begin, please considering, donating a little on Patreon. This YouTube channel is completely demonetized and I don't care about money. But if you like me, come on, just give a little cash. Even $1 goes a long way, for me at least. Show your support, like and subscribe, and share this video if you like what I talk about. Anyways, so I had earlier videos, you can see them in the video description, where I talked about intelligent species that may have existed in this world before humanity evolved. And these are all speculative exercises, and both those videos and this video must be taken with lots of grains of salt. It's a proto-hypothesis, and I'm advancing here. Just, when you play a bet for $1 or something, just in case if it turns out, it's a long shot, and I don't think it's likely, but still, in the worst case, it's a good kind of mental exercise. So I used to think about intelligent species before humanity evolved. And I talked a lot about maybe evidence for such a civilization, but we haven't discovered any millions of years old archaeological ruins. So any evidence must be seen or searched for in the deeper fossil record. That is to say, in temperature changes, acidification, or accumulation of certain gases or minerals or things like that, Because I reasoned that even our glorious humanity, if enough millions of years passed, we may not leave anything behind in terms of artifacts. We would leave fossils. We would certainly leave behind a sort of radioactive residue. That's hard to scrub out of the fossil record. But, given enough time, every material trace of our civilization may disappear. So I was thinking about what might be out there in the fossil record that may have escaped our radar, let's say. And then it occurred to me, I was looking for intelligent species in the wrong way. Because even with everything we know now, there's really slim evidence for a technological civilization in the world's past, I don't think there were any species before us that built cars or iPhones or Tesla rockets or air conditioning units or refined plastic, stuff like that. But what if I was looking at intelligence in the wrong way? Because, our kind of intelligence and our kind of civilization is a very unique kind of civilization. It's really largely dependent on organized labor and farming and anything that came afterwards, the Industrial Revolution and so on and so forth, is just an afterthought, it just evolved in the blink of the eye before midnight. But there are other ways to become intelligent, and there are other ways to create artifact-building societies right under our feet. I'm talking about ants and other social insects. They build cities, they build gigantic for their size artifacts, they modify entire ecosystems, they farm animals, they conduct war without having to go down our path of domesticating cows or building houses or electing kings, or they don't need to build the tools. They become the tools. They are the tools. Their society is mandated by chemical castration and hormones. In the case of ants, the female queen ant stops the drone ants from reproducing and becomes the queen, and a whole other way of social and technical organization is achieved. It's quite alien to our human senses, but it works. Arguably, it works better. I mean, humanity may not have a superb track record if we looked at this planet in 10 million years or so. So I was thinking, what if there was a vertebrate equivalent of this thing? Because in our own world already, we have rodents with a kind of ant-like social organization. There are these things called naked mole rats. That's M-O-L-E, not mole rats. There are these naked mole rats that have a kind of hierarchical queen and worker-like caste denomination. It's still very vague, but they're doing all right. They have these burrow systems. They have got these almost distinct castes. There's just like one big female that reproduces and a lot of workers that don't reproduce as often, let's say. So they are almost like mammals trying to do the insect trick. And I was thinking, what if there was a fossil animal that did this and was so successful that we never saw it? We never looked at it in this perspective, but it was there all along, like this cute girl next door types in romantic films, You were always there, but I never saw you. Something like that. And then it occurred to me that there is something like that. And there is an event like this that could signify an intelligent civilization and its effects on the world's biosphere. I'm, of course, talking about the Permian Extinction, the greatest extinction in which the majority of the life on Earth died out. Compared to this, the death of the dinosaurs, the end Cretaceous extinction, it's like, a slap on the cheek. This was the real big death, and obviously most of you, my viewers, know about this, but let's briefly describe it for posterity's sake. The Permian extinction seemed to be caused by a gigantic carbon and temperature crisis. In a lot of the world, seawater grew extremely hot as 24 to 28 degrees Celsius. I don't know about Fahrenheit. Go translate. And in this hot seas, plants algae had difficulty photosynthesizing. Either because of this or as a cause of this, the world's carbon cycle just went off. I mean, a lot of carbon wasn't recycled, wasn't being put back into sediments. On top of that, there was extreme acidification in the world's oceans and extra methane in the world's atmosphere. And to top everything off, there was an enormous volcanic event called the Siberian Traps. So all of these things happened together. Probably several of them caused the other few. We will never probably know which order they took place in. But these things happened and the world died. And I mean, it really died. But take a look at these things once again. Extreme carbon pollution, extreme water acidification, rising global temperatures, methane. I mean, what we are doing to the planet right now is only missing the volcanism. It's almost like there's a kind of climate crisis running its deadly course in the Permian. Of course, once again, I'm warning, this is a pseudo-hypothesis. I mean, take it with a grain of salt, but it's good to have these mental exercises. Now, remember we were talking about ant-like mammals and how they may have speculatively constructed a society or something that had the same end results as humanity burning up all the oil and causing a global climate crisis in this present age. But maybe that civilization wouldn't need to look like ours. You know, they don't need to build cars or have multinational companies. They don't need to mine all the rare metals for supposedly environmentally friendly electric cars and build twice as many electric plants to power those green cars. Anyways, maybe the civilization and the species that caused the ant Permian extinction was something like a vertebrate equivalent of an ant. You know, you have these brainless creatures. They're not very smart, but they know how to cooperate. They know how to follow each other's scents. They have this kind of society. Maybe they build these enormous underground cities or like these things like castles built out of packed, vomited, like hard, dense, concrete-like material. We will never know. Maybe if you were to look at that age, the horizon would be full of these enormous hill-like things, and if you went closer, it would be like a lot of these like animals shambling about, shoveling earth, gathering food, putting them into these underground chambers and letting them ferment, creating methane. And if any other animal was stupid enough to approach them, they could just band together like a swarm of angry ants and just kill them. They could even have something as simple as maybe they mastered fire, you know. All they had to do was imagine a kind of Permian era giant mole rat organized society. All they do is they know how to take fires after a lightning storm or whatever, and they just burn things. They may just, there's a forest, boom, it's all burnt. 10 years later, there's an enormous nest of like these vomited earth reaching deep underground. They're churning over the soil, eating up all the resources, and they're unstoppable. Why? Because they cooperate. Cooperation is an enormous advantage. And back then, in the Permian, not many animals could do this. Maybe the first one that could do it had this kind of silver bullet, you know, a golden bullet or whatever. Deadly efficiency. You kill one of them, 10 more come. Bust your balls. What you gonna do? They never stop. They just dig shovel, gather shit, eat shit, burn shit. They build these fortresses out of hard-packed vomit, shit, and mud. It's as hard as concrete. You can't even break in. Now, this is a nice fantasy, but looking in the fossil record, are there any such animals? And now that's the shocker, everyone. There are. There are animals like that. Exactly how you would imagine. A gigantic reptilian mammalian ant or a mole rat. Gigantic being, of course, a relative term. I mean, they're gigantic compared to an Earth. Because these animals, maybe some of you have guessed them, they're called Lystrosaurs. Now, what makes them unique is that they are the only animals that not only came through the Permian extinction in good shape, they also prospered. They didn't die. I mean, they didn't just survive, you know. Permian extinction was such a shit show that if you just survived, you were doing okay. These animals prospered. In some fossil deposits, Lystrosaurs, that's Lystrosaur, Lystrosaurus. In some fossil deposits, they make up to 95% of all fossils. I'm not talking about like all animals, all fossils. Think about it. And this is just after the greatest extinction the world has seen. Now that was the eureka moment for me. Maybe the Lystrosaurs aren't the survivors of the extinction. Maybe they are the extinction. Maybe they are that colonial mole rat-like extremely social animal that we were just so blind to see. Like the girl next door in a romantic comedy. They were right in front of me. I just couldn't see. But they were there. And even these animals, they even look like these. They even look like something I just described. They're just extremely stocky with these big barrel chests, very powerful forelimbs that could help them burrow. And they had these flat faces with forward-facing eyes. And, I mean, that's interesting. That's a sign of sociality, maybe. Because you know the meme, if an animal has forward-facing eyes, it's likely to be a predator. Well, what are these guys doing with those flat faces? Almost human-like in some species. Go Google Lystrosaurus declivis. That's Declivis. They have really flat, like, scarily human-like faces. And there's several species of these Lystrosaurs around, which is to be expected. I mean, there are different, maybe these animals diversified into different species as their quasi-intelligence ripped the world apart, you know? And they range in size from a small dog to up to 2.5 meters long. Like one of them, Lystrosaurus murrayi, that's Murrayi. It was like really stocky. There's another one, larger, Lystrosaurus georgii, was a kind of long-faced, bigger animal. There's something called Lystrosaurus curvatus, which was, again, small, but it was well-proportioned. And these animals, the reconstructions are always really like uncanny and eerie. The artists want to make them look like reptiles, but these were like mammal-like reptiles. They're actually, like technically speaking, they belong to a group of animals called dicynodonts, which contain many more species. And dicynodonts themselves were under a larger group called theraspids or therapsids. Those were like the main mammal-like reptiles that were really dominant towards the end of the Permian period. And it's really interesting, you know? I'm not convinced, but I would like to have this go on record. If it emerges that these animals, these Lystrosaurs, they were like gigantically complex ant-like burrowing reptilian mammals that had such an efficient form of social organization that they didn't even need technology to fuck Earth up. They could just dig really hard, band together against enemies, like gather food, ferment a lot of stuff, and explode in population. From like one queen, or I don't know, or maybe they have these reproductive quirks too. Maybe they could reproduce parthenogenetically. That is to say, every female would give birth to clones of herself. And maybe then they would band into some sort of queen organization, which would be like unstoppable. These drones, these bizarre, flat-faced reptilian pug dogs, digging stuff, gathering food, maybe even burning stuff. I don't know. Maybe they had, these were really dumb animals, but you don't really need to be a smart animal to do a lot of things. Maybe they could build dams, build underground fungus gardens, and just by banding together, they could really do some hard damage, Just think about it, man. Just think about it. Yeah, let me take some coffee. So yeah, speculatively speaking, I may have found the evil, dark, colonial creature responsible for killing 95% of all the Earth's biodiversity, creating the first climate crisis, just destroying everything. Weird. Of course, once again, I'm just saying this as a kind of intelligent or barely intelligent speculation. I don't have any data to back this up, but, if one day this emerged to be the fact, I would like to be the person who says that, I told you. Told you, man. But anyways, that's my little pet theory, and that's my short podcast for today. What do you think? Do you think Lystrosaurus could have made a good candidate for a unrealized ant-like colonially intelligent super mammal reptile intelligence? Write your opinions in the comments below, ladies and gents. And as always, consider supporting me on Patreon. This has been a short, brief, but I hope thought-provoking CM Kozman podcast. I hope you missed me, cause I sure as hell missed you all. Goodbye and have a nice day.